Hello everyone. Welcome back to our channel, Canada Immigration. We hope you're doing great. Well, in this video, we'll talk about alarming trend of more international students claiming asylum, Minister. So, to get all the information, pay attention and watch the video through to the end. Please hit like and subscribe, and don't forget to push the notification bell for upcoming episodes. So, without any further delay, let's jump into the video.
Well, I think it's firstly important to take a step back and I think disabuse ourselves of the notion that sophisticated criminal networks, terrorists, are facing a hermetically sealed country. That isn't the case. It's why we have sort of a three-stage process in our security systems, including work done abroad, work done at the border, and work done inside Canada. Am I entirely satisfied of where we are today? No, I don't think anyone in my position would pretend that, nor would the Public Safety Minister. But I'm confident in the security processes as they stand today. I have also ordered my Deputy Minister to do an internal review of what has happened in a number of these cases and produce a report within the next 30 days to see if there are any things that has gone wrong, if there are deficiencies that we need to fix, if they are systemic, or if these are one-offs. It's cold comfort for anyone seeing these news announcements about people getting arrested. Know that our public safety agencies did their work in this case and were able to apprehend these individuals. I know that there's lots of questions that abound about what next or what happened. We're heavily constrained in being able to speak publicly about those because we don't want to fetter the ability of the prosecution, of the Crown, to prosecute its case. So that's where we are today. But it doesn't mean that we are entirely satisfied. We never are. We need to have a security apparatus that is constantly evolving. But we are much better off today than we were even a few years ago, before we were using biometrics, for example. And I think that's something that Canadians can take some comfort in.
A growing number of international students are claiming asylum in order to stay in Canada after being allowed in on student visas, Immigration Minister Marc Miller says, calling it an alarming trend. Speaking to Mercedes Stephenson in an interview that aired Sunday on the West Block, Miller said those claimants are using the international student program as a backdoor entry into Canada, often to lower their tuition fees, and that universities and colleges must improve their screening and monitoring practices to weed out bad actors. He said his department is studying the issue and suggested further reforms to the program were being explored. Miller made the comments after Stephenson asked if Mohammed Shahzeb Khan, a Pakistani man arrested in Quebec this month while allegedly plotting a terrorist attack against Jews in New York City, had claimed asylum after entering Canada on a student visa in 2023.
Our screening process, Mercedes, is progressive in nature. It depends on any flags that are brought to our attention. A red flag doesn't mean that the person is a terrorist. It means that there is evidence that requires a little more scrutiny. It's very difficult to speculate about facts that are not proven or not in evidence yet. I think we do have to respect, for the safety of Canadians, the integrity of the prosecution's ability to fully prosecute the case and not be compromised by people like me speculating or entering into evidence facts that haven't been proven.
Miller said he could not comment on Khan's case as it's before the courts, but was then asked how many international students in total have claimed asylum. There's a growing number, Mercedes, and it's frankly quite alarming given the volumes of people that come to this country, in theory, with the proper financial capacity to live and to pay their tuition fees, which are 4 times what Canadians pay, the minister said. We see that it happens often within the first year of the time they're here. Often for less valid reasons than others, notably to drop the tuition fee down to Canadian rates. There's some opportunism that's being used and exploited there.
Yeah, I couldn't comment on your sources without having spoken to them myself. This is not a uniquely Canadian challenge. We always have challenges, obviously, with resources, and this is a constant conversation with our security agencies to make sure they are properly resourced. In this case, let's remember that they did their job. Let's also remember that one of the individuals in question came through the United States on a student visa. So this is a North America perimeter challenge that we have, and we have to constantly be evolving the security parameters that we apply to screening individuals and making sure that we're constantly adapting to threats themselves that are adapting. So again, ongoing conversations. We can never be satisfied. People like me in the position that I hold can never be satisfied And we have to constantly make sure that we're working to thwart these threats to Canada, because there are people that don't have the best intentions of Canada at heart that are trying to get in the country.
Statistics Canada says while Canadian graduate and undergraduate students pay on average between $7,300 to $7,600 annually in tuition fees, international graduate students paid over $23,000 last year. For international undergraduate students, the annual number is over $40,000. The government announced last week it will further reduce the number of international student permits Canada issues next year by about 10%, after capping levels 35% below previous intake levels. The aim of the federal cap is to reduce the number of temporary residents in Canada from 6.5% of the total population to 5% amid a population explosion and strains on housing and public services. Miller has called on universities and colleges to do their part by improving their recruiting and admitting practices, and reiterated those calls in the West Block interview. This is a program aimed at international excellence and not a backdoor entry into Canada for whatever reason, he said.
I have a lot of respect for Mr. Kenney, particularly as he occupied the role that I occupy today. He's in fact the architect of a number of the programs that are currently still in existence within my department, Mercedes. I would say to that that it's a bit of political hooey. The people that we make Canadian citizens and the privilege of becoming Canadian citizens is one that has nothing to do with their presumptive political affiliations. All the citizenship ceremonies that I go to, I am consciously apolitical, and it's not about creating blocks of voting immigrants for the Liberal Party of Canada. That's absolutely ridiculous. It's for other more important things. One, first and foremost, becoming Canadian citizens and being proud of who they are as Canadians, but also for economic reasons. That's thanks to immigrants that we avoided 2 recessions. That's something that is exceedingly important, and there can never be any compromise with our national security, and that's what we constantly strive to, and our security agencies constantly strive to.
It's part and parcel of the reforms that I've been doing over the better part of the year to make sure that we have a better international student visa system, including detecting fraud at the outset, which is immensely critical, but also looking at the impact and the long-term pain that's created, including the burden of making false or less credible asylum claims. Universities have said international student enrollment is down 45% this year, far greater than what Ottawa's caps aimed for. Miller confident in screening but still not satisfied. Canada's security screening systems are under scrutiny after the arrest of Khan and a father and son from Egypt, Ahmed, and Mustafa Eldadi, charged in July with allegedly plotting an ISIS attack in Toronto. During an appearance at the House of Commons National Security and Public Safety Committee Thursday, Miller said the government is confident in the screening that operates in our country. Speaking to Stevenson, Miller again said he is confident but acknowledged more needs to be done. Am I entirely satisfied of where we are today? No, I don't think anyone in my position would pretend that, nor would the public safety minister, he said. We need to have a security apparatus that is constantly evolving, but we are much better off today than we were even a few years ago before we were using biometrics, for example. And I think that's something that Canadians can take some comfort in.
There's a growing number, Mercedes, and it's frankly quite alarming, given the volumes of people that come to this country, in theory, with the proper financial capacity to live and to pay their tuition fees, which are 4 times what Canadians pay. But it's becoming an alarming trend. We see that it happens often within the first year of the time they're here. I would say often for less valid reasons than others, notably to drop the tuition fee down to Canadian rates. There's some opportunism that's being used and exploited there. It goes to the point that I've been making to universities, colleges, to make sure that their recruiting practices are better, that they make sure that the type of people that we are attracting under what should be a world-class student visa program is one where people don't turn around and, after they've paid all sorts of money to come here and claim asylum. This is a program that aimed international excellence and not a backdoor entry into Canada for whatever reason. And that's, part and parcel of the reforms that I've been doing over the better part of the year to make sure that we have a better international student visa system, including detecting fraud at the outset, which is immensely critical, but also looking at the timeline and making sure that students are here and making sure that they are properly accompanied by the institutions that take so much money from them and in theory, are supposed to give them the best education in the world. But looking at the after effects of that and how that impacts the Canadian economy, and less on that short-term gain than more looking at the impact and the long-term pain that this has created, including the burden of making false or less credible asylum claims.
Miller said he's ordered his deputy minister to do an internal review of what happened in recent incidents, including the entries of Khan and the LDDs, and produce a report within the next 30 days that will identify deficiencies that we need to fix and if the issue is systemic. The minister would not comment on specific allegations to how the alleged terror suspects were able to avoid detection or raise red flags with border officials. But he added border security is not a uniquely Canadian challenge and that the government must work with the US and Mexico to evolve its security parameters, noting Mustafa al-Didi entered Canada by land from the US. "I can never be satisfied," he said. "We have to constantly make sure that we're working to thwart these threats to Canada, because there are people that don't have the best intentions of Canada at heart that are trying to get into the country." That is all for today, in this video. What are your thoughts on this? Please let us know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching the entire video. Hopefully, the information is useful to you. See you later, in the next video. Till then, take care.